Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Monday, the 14th of July, all day. You join myself and Mr. Michael Brown for the Morning Blast, where we will give you a review of the tail end of last week and what's been going on over the weekend, and a preview of today, and because it's Monday, a preview of the week ahead. And as you know by now, a bit of swearing, hope you put a smile on your face, add a bit of value, etc., etc. But before we get underway, I will get the legals out the way. So nothing discussed in the Spaces session constitutes trading or investment advice or infers any kind of endorsement by PIQ, myself, Ryan Paisley, or indeed Mr. Michael Brown. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning to you, Ryan. Good morning, everyone. Not too bad at all. Thank you, mate. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad at all either. I've woken up. I've done my bits. I've seen you already having a moan at Gary Stevenson, so life couldn't be better.
Oh, yes, he's back from his 3-month break. Sadly, he didn't make that permanent.
Ah, well, hopefully next time.
Gazza, if you're listening, fuck off.
Yep, I could only echo those sentiments. Yeah, it's funny enough. I did tweet over the weekend that I think it's obviously because I've noticed subconsciously that he's obviously getting back on the radar. That anyone that shares any of his posts or anyone that seems to agree with just what he's saying, instantly to me just screams of they have no clue what's going on or they're in on it. Because anyone that isn't already aware, he is absolutely the king of bullshitting in terms of his history and what he's actually done in life. Because he was not the biggest trader at City. He wasn't even the biggest trader in his room, let alone at City. I don't think he was probably the biggest trader on his desk. But anyway, let's move on from that Muppet. What's been occurring?
I was going to say, yeah, that's more than enough airtime to be giving him
Yes.
for a month, let alone for one
Yeah,
one
that's it
call.
done. That's the quota filled.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do we stand this morning? Well, we're all talking about tariffs once again because President Trump over the weekend deciding that Saturday lunchtime here in the UK was the perfect time to send those eagerly anticipated tariff letters to the European Union and to Mexico, both of whom will be charged a 30% tariff on goods imported into the United States from the 1st of August. Now, of course, usual rules apply here, with this likely being an escalate to de-escalate strategy aimed at bringing those two parties to the table, extracting concessions, getting a deal in shorter order, etc., etc., etc. But at the same time, even though we all know that Trump is very unlikely to follow through on these threats, market participants still have to price even a small chance that they do actually come to pass, because as I put out a note this morning, the last thing you want is to be the one muppet in the room called into their risk office on the 1st of August, asked why you didn't hedge the possibility of possibly the most well telegraphed tariffs
Yeah.
ever. So that is why we're seeing a little bit of downside in equities this morning. The S&P future trading down by about 0.5%. European equities down by, well, they were down by about 1% at the open. They've paired a little bit of that already. And also why we're seeing a small chunk of weakness coming through in the euro as the dollar pushes back up towards 98. And cable slips below 135. So
Everyone loves a
doesn't
good pushback story.
Oh dear. Doesn't really change anything overall, to be completely honest with you. The calculus is still the deadline, as much as it is a deadline, is the 1st of August. That is when they're negotiating towards. The whole rationale behind the most recent tariffs is to try and get a deal done much more quickly than it may otherwise have been completed. But again, markets just have to discount at least some possibility that these tariffs do come into effect. In fact, the EU, they seem to have very much seen through this, going, we will just continue to negotiate. We're not going to go down the route of any countermeasures just yet, which, to give the EU credit, firstly, well done for working on a Sunday and getting that statement out. That must be a
Oh,
first in
but hang on.
Brussels.
I
The
gotta say,
overtime bill is going to be huge.
I gotta say though, that response was definitely canned. That came back far too fast
Oh,
for
absolutely. Yeah.
for von der Leyen on a Sunday or a Saturday, whatever day it was. But yeah,
Yeah.
as soon as that came back, I was like, hang on, they've had that one sitting in the drawer for a little while.
Well, to be fair, you'd be worried if they hadn't at
No,
this point.
well, it is the EU though. This be fair.
Well, yeah, that is true. But they have postponed any countermeasures until August. They've said they're just going to carry on negotiating. To be honest with you, very much as you were, as we stand here with, 15, 16 days to go until that deadline, which is a firm deadline and until it isn't, until the can is kicked down the road once again. In terms of other notable developments over the weekend and on Friday, just to wrap up on trade, Marco Rubio was speaking on the sidelines of a summit in Asia. He was saying that the odds are high for a Trump-Xi meeting. Of course, we don't know when this meeting is going to happen. The only fact that we have in terms of the US-China trading relationship at the moment is that pause or trade truce that they agreed in Geneva, that is due to wrap up in mid-August. Almost certain again that is going to be extended at some point. Question is whether there is a Trump-Xi meeting beforehand, very unlikely, or after at some point. Again, one to keep an eye on. In terms of other headlines away from trade, we may as well start here in the UK. We heard from the Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey this morning giving an interview to the Times newspaper, noting that there is, and I quote, consistent evidence of firms adjusting employment. That is a very diplomatic way of saying companies are sacking people because they can't afford to keep them anymore. Governor Bailey also touting the possibility of a more dovish rate path. Of course, the BOE have been sticking to this gradual and careful approach, delivering one 25 basis point cut every quarter. Bailey saying that if labour market slack opens, and I quote again, much more quickly, then that path could be different. So a nod there to a potentially more dovish BOE if we continue to see the labour market weakening at the rate it currently is. And of course, we get the latest jobs data on Thursday, which I'll get on to momentarily. And sticking with the UK, the FT reporting this morning that, of course, is the Mansion House dinner tomorrow here in the city. I'm assuming my invite is still in the post somewhere. Apparently, Rachel Reeves, in her speech at the Mansion House dinner, will be hailing fiscal stability and city risk-taking, and she will insist that she has a grip on the UK economy and will not let borrowing run out of control. Now, I've got to be completely honest, it doesn't exactly fill you with confidence when the Chancellor is running around needing to insist that she still has control over proceedings. It's a bit like when a bank is trying to prove its creditworthiness, the game is probably already up. And these comments will almost certainly fall on deaf ears.
You see me running around on a Friday morning claiming I'm sober.
Well, yeah, or that, actually, yeah. Or any morning, to be completely honest.
Well, no. I'm a lot better these days.
Well, yeah, low bar, but we'll move on.
Wow.
Away from the UK, in terms of economic data, we did have the latest employment stats out of Canada on Friday. I must admit, I had to do a double take when the report crossed, and it was nothing to do with the bottle of wine I had at lunchtime. The Canadian economy adding 83,100 jobs in June, which on its own is a very, very solid number. It's even more solid when you consider that the consensus was for zero. So whoever is forecasting the Canadian economy needs a word with themselves. Unemployment also dropped to 6.9%, down from a prior 7%. Of course, when you get data, I'm no expert on the Canadian economy, but when you get data that far out of consensus, it does you do sort of smell a bit of a rat. So I think that one warrants slightly further investigation. Away from that, a few other notable headlines from Friday. The IEA reporting that Saudi Arabia surged their oil output far above their OPEC plus quota in June. This feeds back into, now a long-running theme of the Morning Blast, where effectively the Saudis and OPEC plus in general are basically just vying for market share at this moment in time, and not their usual efforts to prop up crude prices. Before I get to the corporate news, we had reports via Reuters sources this morning that the Bank of Japan, they're looking to raise their inflation forecasts for this fiscal year, but hold them steady for the next 2 fiscal years. That comes ahead of the next BOJ meeting towards the end of the month. Markets not pricing anything for that meeting at the back end of July. And in terms of corporate news, what have we got? The Wall Street Journal noting that Kraft Heinz are considering breaking up the firm. This would involve spinning off a large chunk of the grocery business, and the spin-off could be valued at as much as $20 billion. Of course, if I remember rightly, that came together as a result of Warren Buffett back in the day, and it looks like they could now be splitting things part. Sticking with corporate news, a few headlines for the tech sector just to round things up this morning. Business Insider, they report that Apple has submitted a bid worth at least $150 million a year to stream Formula One races starting in 2026. Of course, F1 is very much going from strength to strength in the United States at the moment, so Apple looking to jump on that bandwagon. And lastly, two from the AI space, the FT reporting that XAI, which is of course Elon Musk's firm, is seeking up to a $200 billion valuation in its next fundraising round. I did also see some reports over the weekend that apparently one of the firms that may invest in that fundraising round is SpaceX, which is like taking money out of one pocket and putting it in the other when it comes to Elon Musk. And lastly, Google. They are, or Alphabet, I should say, Google or Alphabet, they're going to pay £2.4 billion, dollars, forgive me, for the assets and talent of a company called Windsurf. Now, this company is someone I had never heard of in my life, but apparently, after a quick Google, they are an AI code generation startup. And there has been a previous attempt in recent months by OpenAI to purchase the firm, but it looks like Alphabet have got there first. And I'm sure Tom Talks Cars is furiously typing away to explain why they're the most important company the world has ever seen.
Yeah, quite. You can tell it's a Monday because you missed an open goal regarding Apple and Formula One by saying something along the lines of Apple looking to take them into top gear or something like that. But yeah, it's a Monday, so I'll let you off
Well,
the
no,
headlines.
we don't want to
Is it
start
because you
the.
got something? Is it because you got something saved up for
No,
later?
no, no. I was just going to say, we just don't want to start the week with a crude pun because otherwise you just race ahead of yourself and then you just end up getting
Oh,
lapped later in the week.
oh, God damn my life.
I'm just going to take a pit stop now. You carry on.
Oh, right. Thank you for that. Before I stall.
Oh, dear.
Right, so some overnight news headlines via our dear friend Zach Eisman. Do follow him, do subscribe to the Substack, etc., etc. Best way to keep up with the overnight news that you might have missed, as well as this podcast, obviously. Starting off in trade, as Michael said, Trump's tariff threats on the EU and Mexico. Trump allows 30% tariffs on most imports from the EU and Mexico starting August 1st. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett confirming the tariffs are, quote, real unless trade deals improve. I think that's because I think they might be getting a bit fed up that everyone's kind of caught wind of the fact that they're very rarely real. So the fact that he's having to stress they are real kind of shows that the game's up on that front, perhaps.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help when you've then got Peter Navarro running around going, no, 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 it's just a negotiation.
Oh, no, exactly that. Exactly that. Like, the two hands are not talking to each other. EU's response to US tariffs, as Michael said, the EU extended its suspension of countermeasures to US tariffs until early August, that'd be August the 1st, pushing for a negotiated settlement while German Chancellor Merz collaborates with Macron and von der Leyen to address the trade war. Personally, I think it's been interesting to watch because we know Merz has already been quite vocal ahead of this, saying the EU is just not doing this very well. They're dragging their feet. They need to just focus on the things that matter most, i.e. if Mer's saying it, he means automobiles and the auto sector. So it'd be interesting to see if any fractures get greater as this August the 1st deadline approaches, because the bloc is a big old country and there's a lot of talking heads and they're all pulling in different directions. So it'd be an interesting one to keep an eye on. China's exports surge in rare earths. China's exports grew in June, driven by firms rushing shipments before a tariff truce ends. That's also called front running, as me and Michael have talked about many, many times before. Rare earth exports, they hit their 2009 peak. Now, this obviously, long-time listeners will remember that we've been speaking about the rare earth export limit since before Liberation Day. So it looks like they're going gangbusters at the moment, getting those shipped out, which can only appeal to the Trump administration. So perhaps this works well for China's gambit. US-Taiwan, their trade deal nears completion. Taiwan's top trade negotiator indicated a US-Taiwan trade tariff deal in the final inning,
Oh,
likely by
no.
August the 1st.
This
That
is,
wasn't me. That was their quote.
oh, no, it just brings back horrible flashbacks of Larry Kudlow
Oh,
from about
90%
four
done.
years ago. Yeah.
90% done, baby. Where was I? South Korea semiconductor tariff concerns. South Korea's trade minister warned of damage from potential US tariffs on semiconductors, a key export sector for the nation. In macro news, Trump's Fed chair comments. Trump suggested Fed chair should resign, with Hassett noting potential grounds for dismissal, raising concerns about a US dollar and Treasury sell-off. Just on this, now we all know it's potentially impossible for Trump to sack Powell, legally at least. But one thing I noticed over the weekend is obviously the fallout from Trump denying that an Epstein list exists. Potentially means that Trump is now going to be looking for something else to get the media looking away from Epstein, get the mass, the mass populace, not all of them, but the majority of the populace looking the other way. Now, it's it might be a cliche, and you might think I'm wearing tinfoil fedora, but it's quite often that when something like this goes on, politicians or the powers that be will look for a way to kind of draw attention somewhere else. Now, if Trump starts putting some significant effort into trying to get rid of Powell, that will draw the media's attention away from the Epstein list. So it would make sense for him to do that, or it would make sense for him to do something else. So I wouldn't be shocked if in the coming days, we start seeing another major story break, or Trump goes gangbusters after something else or whatever, because he will be wanting to deflect attention from the Epstein list. It's just the way it is. I'm not saying anything's going to come of it. Normally, I think the old cliche is like, oh, the government will start a war when this is going to happen. Now, I'm not going to say they're doing that, but just keep an eye on things. Anyway, Bitcoin hits 120,000. Bitcoin crossed 120,000 for the first time, driven by expectations of favourable crypto policies from the US. Japan's inflation and yen outlook, as Michael alluded to, the BOJ will consider revising up its inflation forecast due to rising food costs, while options traders brace for weaker yen amid political and trade risks. Geopolitical news, Trump's Ukraine arms plan. Trump will announce plan to arm Ukraine, potentially including long-range missiles capable of reaching deep inside Russia, including Moscow. That's according to Axios. And finally, from me, just some equity news. Where was I? Amazon. That's mainly the big story for us, really. Amazon Prime's Day boost after people on Twitter screaming at
Oh
the start
yeah,
of the week that
this
it's going to be the
is
worst Prime Day ever. Turns out their sales drove a 30% increase in US online spending to $24.1 billion, surpassing all estimates, and it was actually their best Prime Day ever.
Yeah, this was.
Um,
I think we probably discussed it last week, but most of these Amazon sort of Prime Day events that they've done have been like 1 or 2 days. This one was four
yeah.
days. So a slow start, yeah, fine, because everyone's probably sat there going, well, if, I want to buy an iPhone because I'm holding it in my hand and it's 10% off on day one, logic would say, worst case scenario, it's still going to be 10% off on day four. Best case scenario, it might be 25% off. So why not just wait until the
Well,
end of it?
and also, most people, if they're anything like me, wait till the last possible minute to do anything, and then you do
Yeah,
it. It's
exactly.
bit of ADHD time blindness for you. But there we go. Google, they struck a deal to pay about 2.4 billion for top talent and licensing rights from Windsurf, as Michael said. Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang said the US plan to reindustrialize its technologies, quote, exactly the right thing to do. To quote, make the United States better, but also reduce our sole dependency on other countries is a smart move. So definitely playing up to Trump there. Meta Platforms completed a deal to acquire Play AI, a small artificial intelligence startup focused on voice technology. Jamie Dimon says the private credit is dangerous, and he wants JP Morgan to get in on it. Not quite sure what that means by there.
Well,
Wall Street
it
Journal
probably
article
means
notes.
I'm not involved in it at the moment, so I'm going to say it's dangerous until I start making money from it.
Yeah, fair enough. The Wall Street Journal notes the bank has put $50 billion towards lending to riskier companies to compete with non-bank giants. Tesla plans to poll shareholders on whether to invest in XAI. Elon Musk said the Wall Street Journal reported SpaceX was prepared to funnel $2 billion into Grok chatbot developer. I have seen a headline just before we came on that Musk is not in support of merging Tesla and XAI, so I want to keep an eye on there. Finally, from me, BHP, as in obviously the energy giant, said on Monday it signed a preliminary deal with China battery giants Qatar and BYD to explore opportunities in battery development for mining equipment and transport. And that's it from me. Back to you in the studio.
Very good. I actually have one last headline before we move on
Oh, go,
to
go,
the
go
week
on.
ahead, and it's regarding the Morning Blast's favourite stock, Pony AI.
Oh,
Um,
yes, go on. Tell me.
Well, bad news. It may actually all be a load of pony by the sounds of it. Research firm Grizzly Research published.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, exactly. I'm taking anything I can get here. They published a report towards the back end of last week, noting that Pony AI have, quote, very little to offer, and it is a smoke and mirrors show. Apparently, they've been falsifying data around their self-driving algorithm, and the management have been involved in a big cover up there. So we'll see whether they might fall at the next fence.
What? Oh, well played. But you know what though? I'm quite happy if they all fall apart and become a shower of shit because we forgot to invest in it.
So am
But
I.
also, just one quick headline before I pass back because Cam's just shouted at me. Bitcoin is trading all-time highs, just shy of $123,000. Get up, whip that nag, you slag.
Oh God. Oh,
Right, back to
so
you
I
in the
might
studio.
give Pony AI a bit of a beating at this point. To be fair. Right, where are we this week then? Pretty barren.
What year is it?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Pretty barren docket, to be honest with you, to get the week underway. We have had some important export data out of China this morning. Exports having risen by 5.8% on the year in June, imports by 1.1% on the year last month. Other than that, there's really nothing of any note on the data docket today, with no real significant economic releases or central bank speakers worth bearing in mind. We do, though, have a pretty busy week ahead when you look at the remainder of the calendar, so we may as well just take it day by day. Tomorrow, in the early hours, we get the first read on second quarter GDP out of China. The economy expected to have grown by 5.1% on an annual basis in the second 3 months of the year, compared to the 4.5% pace that we saw in Q1. Along with that, we'll also get the latest Chinese retail sales and industrial production figures, so have an absolute bucket of salt ready to interpret that data along with it. Into the remainder of Tuesday, we have the latest ZEW sentiment surveys from Germany. We also get inflation figures from Canada and, more importantly, the United States, where headline CPI is seen rising to 2.6% on a year-on-year basis in June, up from the 2.4% prior. The core metric, that's seen rising to 2.9%, up from a prior 2.8%. Many expect that June will be the first month that we begin to see the impacts of tariff-induced price pressures, not primarily as inventories and all of that stockpiling is exhaust, and companies end up having to pass on at least a chunk of those tariffs to the end consumer in the form of higher prices. Of course, not going to be a game changer for the FOMC. A July cut is absolutely out of the question at this moment in time. Also on Tuesday, it's the start of Q2 earnings season. Some of the big banks getting us underway, with JP Morgan, Wells Fargo and Citi due to report before Tuesday's opening bell. And we also have plenty of Fed speak, as well as BOE Governor Bailey making his annual address at Mansion House on Tuesday evening. Into Wednesday, we get the latest inflation figures from here in the UK, where headline inflation is seen holding steady at 3.4% on a year-on-year basis in June. Though the BOE's closely watched measure of services prices, that is seen dipping slightly to 4.5%, down from a prior 4.7%, and that may put to bed some concerns that the bank have over the risk of inflation persistence. Also on Wednesday, we get the latest US PPI and industrial production figures. The Fed released their beige book, while notable earnings come from the likes of Bank of America, Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. Into Thursday, we have jobs data due from Australia, where, of course, the Reserve Bank of Australia surprised by leaving rates unchanged at their meeting last week. We also get the latest jobs data from here in the UK, where unemployment is seen having held steady at 4.6% in the 3 months to May, but HMRC payrolls are likely to have fallen rather significantly once more in June. The rest of Thursday sees the final numbers in terms of Eurozone inflation, retail sales out of the United States, and of course the weekly US jobless claims data too, while earnings on Thursday come from the likes of TSMC before the market open and Netflix after the market close. And then into Friday, we have the latest inflation data from Japan, housing starts, building permits, consumer sentiment from the United States, as well as earnings from classic bellwether stock 3M due before the market open on Friday. And of course, given the current environment that we're in, do bear in mind that we are still on alert for any potential trade, geopolitical Fed or any other nonsense that may come out of the Oval Office throughout the next 4 or
Nonsense.
5 days. And of course, being on alert for a potential fall in pony AI that Ryan and I are now praying for.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that. Michael, thank you as always. I'm glad you've had a relaxing weekend, I trust. Listeners, thank you so much as always for tuning in. We really do appreciate you. Yeah, whatever you're doing today, keep it tight, stay safe, and we will see you all tomorrow. Goodbye. Much
Bye
love.
for now.